What if the key to real freedom wasn't about changing the world around you, but about completely owning your role in it? Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful way to build inner strength, and it comes from the philosophy of Kesari Babu.
Wow, that's a challenging idea, isn't it? I mean, our first instinct is usually to point fingers or feel like a victim. But this one single thought, this is the bedrock of a philosophy that yanks power back from the outside world and puts it right back into your hands.
So, the first big idea here is what's called radical responsibility. This is the starting point, the internal shift. And it's all about completely changing how you see your role in literally everything that happens to you. Radical responsibility, it's not about being perfect, not at all. It's about ownership. It means you look at every single situation, the good and the bad, and you find your part in it. It's about throwing out the whole idea that you're just passively getting pushed around by life. And get this, the idea of a choice here is super broad. It's not just about those huge, life-changing decisions. It's the little sacrifices you made, the things you went along with, the risks you decided to take, and maybe most importantly, the times you decided to say nothing at all. All those tiny things, they add up and they build your reality. So this is the question it all boils down to. It separates two totally different ways of living. The victim is always asking, why did this happen to me? But the architect, the person who's practicing radical responsibility, they ask a much, much more powerful question. Okay, what was my role here? And what am I going to do differently next time? Okay, this is so important to understand. This is not about beating yourself up or blaming yourself. It's about seeing clearly. It's about identifying where maybe you ignored some red flags, or you didn't set a boundary you should have, or you just let fear call the shots. That awareness, that's not a weakness. It's actually the exact launchpad for making real change. So, once you've got this internal mindset of responsibility down, what's next? Well, the next step is all about action. How does this new way of thinking actually show up in the choices you make, especially when those choices affect other people? Now, we're not talking about small stuff here, like what to have for lunch. We're talking about the big, defining commitments of your life, your relationships, your career, your deepest beliefs. Once you make a choice that heavy, you then have to figure out how to live with it in a world full of other people. And you've really got two main paths. The first is advocacy, where you actually take the time to explain your reasoning and help people see where you're coming from. The second is autonomy, where you just stand firm in your decision, even if nobody else on the planet gets it. And it's key to remember that neither path is automatically better than the other. But, and this is a big but, no matter which road you decide to walk down, they are both governed by one single, unbreakable rule. And this just cuts right to the heart of what it means to live in a society. Hiding your choices, acting in secret, that breaks the contract. Why? Because our choices always create ripples. They affect the people around us, which means being transparent is like a fundamental measure of your integrity. Let's just break down why this is so critical. Acting in secret suggests you're either scared or you're trying to deceive someone. Your choices literally change the world for the people close to you. So being honest is how you honor them. And really, hiding a choice is kind of like betraying yourself and the decision you were so sure about. It all comes down to self-respect. Okay, so you've embraced responsibility. You've committed to being transparent. But this is where you run into the final boss of this whole philosophy. What happens when your good intentions are met with pure suspicion? And this is just a painful, hard truth of life. Your goodness, your virtue, is basically invisible to someone who has already decided not to believe you. Their own baggage, their past hurts, their biases, it creates this filter that just twists everything you do. And you can see that painful gap right here. On one side, you've got your reality. You're operating from a place of honesty, loyalty, and genuineness. But on the other side, through their filter, all they see is suspicion, doubt, and bias. They're basically asking you to prove something that you can't prove, because it lives inside you. This is the trap. The absolute moment you start trying to prove your honesty, it stops being real. It just becomes a performance for an audience, and the virtue itself just vanishes. Real character doesn't need to be constantly auditioning for approval. So what's the answer? It's not to argue more or try to put on a better performance. It's to build up the inner strength to silently carry the weight of being misunderstood. Now, that might sound like weakness, but it's the total opposite.
It's a quiet, profound kind of resilience that comes from knowing your own truth, even when nobody else sees it. So after you've embraced all this, the responsibility, the transparent actions, and enduring being misunderstood, we finally get to the whole point. What's the reward for all of this incredibly difficult inner work? This is where it all clicks together into one solid framework. When you own your outcomes with radical responsibility, and you own your choices with transparency, and you own your truth, even when people doubt you, you build this unshakable foundation inside yourself. And there it is. That is the ultimate freedom. You're no longer owned by what other people think. You're not owned by your fear of what might happen, and you're not owned by feeling like a victim. You are finally truly guided by your own compass. Look, this isn't just a cool philosophy to think about, it's something to actually practice. So the last question I have is for you. What is one situation, one relationship, or one outcome in your life where you can stop making excuses, stop blaming, and just reclaim your power by taking full responsibility, starting right now?